Hello everyone, welcome to DEEPSIGHT. In the last episode, we talked about the profound impact of the Renaissance on Europe. Today, we will continue to travel through time and space to unfold a magnificent historical picture scroll together, and see how France has gradually leaped from a feudal kingdom to the hegemony of Europe after the Renaissance. But before getting to the point, we have to move the timeline forward and talk about how the land of France gradually gave birth to the prototype of monarchy from the wilderness before the Capetian dynasty. This long evolution from prehistory to the Middle Ages, like the foundation of a building, laid the key foreshadowing for the subsequent rise. Let's first discuss the prehistoric history of France and the foundation of ancient times, the thousand-year accumulation from Gaul to Frank, and the magical transformation from Gallic savages to Roman citizens. Before Hugh Capet established the Capetian dynasty, the land of France had experienced thousands of years of civilization baptism. The first people to live here were the Celts, who formed the Gallic civilization around 500 BC, leaving behind legends such as the site of Notre Dame de Paris was once a Celtic sacrificial shrine. But what really shaped the French gene was that in 51 BC, Caesar led the Roman legions to conquer Gaul, incorporated it into the territory of the Roman Empire, and established the Gallic province. In 52 BC, the Gallic tribal leader Vercingetorix staged a barbarian version of the Battle of Gætia in the city of Alesia. This genius, who was called the only one in Gaul who could unify the tribes in the whole of Gaul by Caesar in the Gallic Wars, used scorched earth tactics to drag down the Roman legions, but surrendered voluntarily at the last moment to save his people. Interestingly, his prisoner car shape at the Roman triumphal ceremony, wearing a blue and gold Celtic war skirt and a dragon-shaped gold collar around his neck, actually caused Roman nobles to imitate and became a fashion trend of the year. The Romans brought Latin, the direct ancestor of modern French, the Roman legal system, and a road network throughout the country. To this day, the French national highway numbering still follows the radiation law of Roman roads. At that time, Lyon became the capital of Gaul, and its prosperity was second only to Rome. These infrastructures and institutional frameworks provided the underlying template for the subsequent state construction. With the development of history, the new order under the German Iron Hoof, the Frankish kingdom, emerged. In the 5th century AD, the Western Roman Empire collapsed, and the Franks from the east bank of the Rhine took advantage of the situation. In 486, Clovis led the Salic Frankish tribe to defeat the remnants of the Western Roman Empire and established the Merovingian dynasty in Soissons, which was the first truly unified regime in French history. In this process, we have to mention the Franks king selection artifact and the vase chopping incident. In 486 AD, Clovis I seized a Roman vase in the Battle of Soissons. According to Frankish tradition, the spoils must be distributed by drawing lots. But Clovis wanted to present the vase to the church, but was resisted by the soldiers. "You can take your share, but this vase must be distributed fairly." The young king smashed the vase with a battle axe on the spot and said coldly, "This time next year, you will understand what fairness is." The following year, the soldier was indeed beheaded by Clovis for violating discipline. This story was included in the history of the Franks and became a classic metaphor for the supremacy of royal power over tradition. Clovis did two far-reaching things. First, he converted to Christianity and gained the support of the church, making the Frankish kingdom the chosen people of God, recognized by the church. This combination of politics and religion later ran through French history. Second, he granted land to nobles and meritorious officials. This feudal system later became the cornerstone of medieval Europe. As the supreme lord, the king granted land in exchange for the military loyalty of the nobles. However, the late Merovingian dynasty fell into the era of lazy kings. The royal power was gradually controlled by the prime minister, that is, the general manager of the palace. The king became a puppet, and the real power of the country was in the hands of powerful prime ministers like Charles Martel. In 732, Charles Martel repelled the Arab invaders in the Battle of Tours and saved Christian Europe. His son Pepin deposed King Merovingian in 751 and established the Carolingian dynasty, opening a new chapter of power. Let's talk about the division of the Carolingian Empire and the birth of West Francia. Pepin's son was the famous Charlemagne. He fought in many battles and was crowned Emperor of the Romans by the Pope in 800. He almost unified the entire Western Europe and established the huge Carolingian Empire. Charlemagne had a nerd personality and embarrassing shortcomings. Charlemagne was known as the father of Europe, but he had a secret. According to his secretary, the emperor was still practicing writing in his later years, but the handwriting on the parchment was as crooked as a child's graffiti. However, this did not prevent him from creating the first academic internet celebrity team in Europe. He invited scholar Paul Diacon from Italy, educator Alcuin from England, and even founded an intellectual talk show in the Aachen court, where scholars debated philosophy and mathematics every night, and the loser was punished for drinking wine with honey. After Charlemagne's death, the empire soon fell into division due to the issue of succession. The Treaty of Verdun in 843 divided the empire into three parts. East Francia was the predecessor of Germany, Middle Francia was the predecessor of today's Italy, and West Francia was the direct prototype of France. During the reign of King Charles the Bald of West Francia, the feudalization process accelerated. The nobles obtained the hereditary right to the territory, but the royal territory continued to fragment. By the beginning of the 10th century, the king actually controlled only the Isle de France around Paris, with an area of only 30,000 square kilometers, which was not even as large as the Duchy of Burgundy at the time. This situation of weak royal family and strong nobles not only buried the hidden dangers of feudal separatism, but also provided a historical opportunity for the Capetian dynasty to integrate the country through centralized means. After that, France staged a history of dynasty change, interpreting the tempering of power and the inheritance of blood. Let's first discuss the Capetian dynasty, which was the founding period of the French monarchy from 987 AD to 1328 AD, lasting nearly 350 years. 987 AD. At that time, Louis V, the last king of the Carolingian dynasty, died without an heir. The noble meeting skipped the Carolingian family and nominated Hugh Capet as king. The Capet family originated from Robert I, Duke of Frank. As the grandson of Robert I, Hugh Capet ascended the throne through the nobility and created the first hereditary dynasty in France. His succession marked the transition of France from aristocratic co-governance to monarchical centralization. Since then, the throne has strictly followed the principle of paternal inheritance. On the surface, this is an aristocratic election, but in fact it is a collective correction of the decline of the Carolingian dynasty by local power parties. After all, the descendants of Charles the Bald have been puppets for nearly 100 years. After Hugh Capet succeeded to the throne, he did a revolutionary thing, breaking the traditional equal division system of the Franks, establishing the hereditary principle of father's death and son's succession, and named the dynasty Capet, using the name of the fief to strengthen family identity. This marks the official transformation of France from a loose regime of tribal alliance to a hereditary monarchy. After his grandson Louis VI succeeded to the throne, he showed an iron-fisted approach in the face of the situation of noble separatism. He personally led the royal army to suppress the rebellion, expanded the royal territory from the vicinity of Paris to the Loire River basin, and laid the foundation for the core ruling area of the Capetian dynasty. This monarch, known as Fat Louis, used force to prove that the royal authority was unchallengeable. The course of the Capetian dynasty is a history of counterattack and struggle from the election of the king to hereditary succession, laying the foundation for France to become a European power in the future. In fact, when Hugh Capet was elected king by the nobles, his actual territory was only the Isle de France around Paris, which was smaller than today's Beijing. In order to package the royal bloodline, his descendants fabricated the legend that the Capetian family originated from the Prince of Troy, and even deliberately displayed the holy oil bottle at the coronation ceremony of Reims Cathedral. It is said that it is a mysterious container where angels personally drip holy oil. From then on, the divine right of kings became the core IP of the French royal family. Next, we will introduce several French kings. Louis VI reigned from 1108 to 1137, grandson of Hugh Capet. He inherited the throne through the designation of his father, King Philip I. During his reign, He suppressed the rebellion of the nobles with tough means and expanded the royal territory from the vicinity of Paris to the Loire River basin. He was called Louis the Fat. Fat Louis was not only fat, but also had an inspirational history of weight loss. Louis VI's life was too happy. Because of overeating every day, his weight reached 120 kilograms. When riding a horse, he needed 2 mules to pull the saddles specially made for him. Don't underestimate this fat king. He is not a fat coward. On the contrary, this fat king is a military madman. When suppressing the rebellion of the nobles, he charged into battle wearing a 30-kilogram chainmail. However, this warrior eventually suffered from gout due to excessive obesity. Before his death, he had to let people hang him on a chair with a rope to work. This spirit is definitely the most hard-working king in French history. Philip II reigned 1180 to 1223. He was the son of Louis VII and was designated as co-king by his father in 1179. After defeating the Anglo-German coalition in the Battle of Bouvines in 1214, he forced King John to cede Normandy, Anjou, and other territories, thus tripling the French royal territory. Louis IX reigned 1226 to 1270, grandson of Philip II. He inherited the throne of his father Louis VIII at the age of 12, and his mother Blanche of Castile served as regent until he came of age. Because of his judicial reforms and participation in the Crusades, he was named Saint Louis by the Church and became a model of the combination of divine power and royal power in the Capetian dynasty. Louis IX is the most famous saint in French history, but he did something that ruined his character. In order to show his holiness and humble virtues, Louis IX, who was canonized, suddenly came up with a strange rule. He decided to wash the feet of 30 poor people every day to show his humility. Imagine how many poor people in France had to wait for the king's visit in order to see his face. During the Crusades in 1250, it was this Saint King who ordered the right hands of all captured Saracens to be chopped off, on the grounds that they could no longer hold weapons. This contradiction between holiness and violence has become a true portrayal of medieval monarchy. The Valois dynasty after the Capetian dynasty was a branch successor in crisis, which lasted for a full 260 years from 1328 to 1589. In 1328, Charles IV, the last king of the Capetian dynasty, died, and the lack of male heirs triggered a succession crisis. According to the European Salic law we introduced earlier, which prohibits female inheritance, Philip, the Count of Valois, a branch of the Capetian family, as the grandson of Philip II, successfully defeated King Edward III of England, the nephew of Charles IV, and ascended the throne as Philip VI, opening the Valois dynasty. However, this succession brought great disaster to France. This dispute directly triggered the 100 Years' War between England and France that lasted for 116 years, and countless lives were lost just for a dim crown on the emperor's head. The kings of this dynasty also appeared one after another like a revolving lantern. Charles VII reigned from 1422 to 1461. The son of Charles VI was elected king by the nobles in northern France in 1422, but the actual control area was limited to the south of the Loire River. After Joan of Arc led the army to lift the siege of Orleans in 1429, he was officially crowned in Reims Cathedral and established the royal family's absolute control over the army through the Orleans Decree. In 1429, when Joan of Arc met Charles VII with God's revelation, in order to test its authenticity, the court counselor asked her to identify the king from 30 nobles wearing the same clothes. Joan of Arc walked straight to Charles VII hiding in the corner and said the famous line, "Your Majesty, you are the real master of France." This scene was later painted by Leonardo da Vinci in the coronation of Charles VII and became a symbol of the awakening of French national consciousness. Louis XI reigned from 1461 to 1483, son of Charles VII. He went into exile in Burgundy before ascending the throne because of political disagreements with his father. After ascending the throne, he annexed the Duchy of Burgundy in 1477 through diplomatic marriage and military deterrence, extending the French territory to the foothills of the Alps for the first time, laying the foundation for the modern French territory. Francis I reigned from 1515 to 1547, son-in-law of Louis XII. Louis XII had no male heir, so he passed the throne to his brother-in-law, who ushered in the golden age of the French Renaissance after he ascended the throne. He invited Leonardo da Vinci to settle in the Château d'Amboise and presided over the construction of the Château de Chambord, making France the cultural center of Europe after Italy. In order to invite Leonardo da Vinci to France, Francis first offered him the conditions of living in the castle and spending his pension freely, and even personally raised his pillow before the master died. The Mona Lisa, brought by Leonardo da Vinci, was originally hung in the bathroom of the Palace of Fontainebleau for the king to enjoy while taking a bath. The erotic early years of this world-famous painting probably shocked the security guards of the Louvre. The real peak of France was achieved by the Bourbon Dynasty, which was a bloodline continuation after a religious war. It lasted for another 200 years from 1589 to 1792 during the French Revolution. In 1589, Henry III, the last king of the Valois dynasty, was assassinated. Because he had no heirs, the throne was inherited by Henry de Bourbon, King of Navarre, who was called Henry IV. The Bourbon family originated from Robert, the grandson of Louis IX of the Capetian dynasty, and was named because of its fiefdom in the Duchy of Bourbon. Before this incident, France had been in constant civil strife due to the dispute between Protestants and Catholics. The succession of Henry IV ended the religious war that lasted for 36 years, but his identity as a Protestant leader triggered resistance from Catholic nobles. It was not until 1593 that he converted to Catholicism and stabilized his rule. When Henry IV converted to Catholicism, he left the famous saying that Paris deserves a mass. But what is less known is that he still retained his Protestant faith in private, and even hid an English version of the Bible in his bedroom. Even more dramatic is that his first wife, Queen Margot of the Medici family, was a Catholic fanatic. Their marriage was a miniature theater of religious wars. The famous St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of Protestants broke out on the wedding day. It was really a bloody wedding. Louis XIII reigned from 1610 to 1643, the eldest son of Henry IV. He inherited the throne at the age of 9, and his mother Marie de Medici was regent. In 1617, he launched a coup to remove his mother's favorites, appointed Richelieu as chief minister, and ended the Protestant rebellion through the Edict of Grace of Allèche, freeing the royal power from the constraints of religious factions. Louis XIV reigned from 1643 to 1715, the eldest son of Louis XIII. He succeeded to the throne at the age of 5, and his mother Anna of Austria was regent, and Cardinal Mazarin was the chief minister. After Mazarin's death in 1661, he took power and pushed the concept of divine right to the extreme. His 72-year reign was the pinnacle of European monarchy. When the Sun King first inherited the throne, the nobles usually urinated and defecated in the corridors when they were in urgent need. This caused all kinds of mixed smells to permeate the air in the busy Palace of Versailles. In order to cover up the hygiene problems of the Palace of Versailles, the king ordered perfume to be sprayed all over the palace, and even gave body fragrance allowances to his favorites. He consumed 100 liters of perfume every month for this purpose. Louis XIV was definitely the most fragrant king in history, no one else. His favorite imperial water was made with orange blossom, rosemary, and musk, and the formula is still preserved in the Palace of Fontainebleau. His mistress, Madame Pompadour, was even more amazing. She invented the habit of wiping letter paper with perfume, so that love letters were scented with rosemary. This may be the earliest fragrance marketing. The strength of today's French perfume industry is actually inseparable from the achievements of the Sun King. It has to be said that he left a huge cultural heritage for future generations. Louis XV reigned from 1715 to 1774, was the great-grandson of Louis XIV. Due to Louis XIV's longevity, his father Prince Louis and his grandfather, the Duke of Burgundy, died before they could inherit the throne. Louis XV inherited the throne at the age of 5. Although he continued French hegemony during his reign, the financial crisis and bureaucratic corruption laid hidden dangers for the Great Revolution. His famous saying, "After I die, I don't care about the flood," became a prophecy of the collapse of the old system. Dear viewers, I am Lawrence, your time navigator. DEEPSIGHT is a serious channel that explores the truth of history. It shows the full picture of history through multidimensional analysis of history, politics, economy, culture, etc. Your patience in reading this proves that you are a historical spirit with a true spirit of exploration. Learning from people can help you understand gains and losses, and learning from history can help you understand the rise and fall. I hope that today's sharing will give you a new understanding of the history of France's rise. Let us work together for the civilization and peace of the world. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with more history lovers. In the next issue, we will explore how the French Revolution reshaped the modern world, so stay tuned.